Hey everyone, it's Brian here at Red Leaf Ranch. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm really excited about today's video. We're going to be repotting some seedlings. So your first question might be, why even repot seedlings? Well, if you planted seedlings like me and you have them in these small little individual cells in the cell tray, they'll eventually get to a point where they're going to become root bound and they're going to outgrow the cell. And when they become root bound, they don't have enough room to expand and grow to their fullest potential before, getting them outside in the garden. So it's really nice to get them in a bigger container so they're able to expand their roots, grow much bigger, much healthier, and be much more prepared for the garden. So there are a few signs that let you know that it's time to repot your seedlings. I'd say the first sign is that your seedlings are going to start to dry up very fast. They're a lot larger, they need a lot more water, they have a much more established root system, so they're going to be drinking a lot more. So you're going to want to put them in a bigger pot so that it can hold more water and feed them more water for longer periods of time. The second sign is that you might actually start to see roots climbing out under the cell tray. And I see a few of them popping out. I'm not really sure if you can see them in the video, but there are a few roots starting to poke out. And that's a pretty good sign that they're ready to expand. The third sign would actually be their actual size. If your seedling is about 2 to 3 times bigger than the actual cell that they're in, I'd say it's a pretty good time to repot your seedlings. So my seedlings are giving me all of those signs, so I'm gonna go ahead and repot them. Today I'm gonna be repotting some tomatoes and some peppers as well. I'd say repotting is a lot more beneficial for tomatoes and peppers or any other heat-loving vegetables, more so than cool-loving vegetables, because these have to grow in the greenhouse for a much longer time than, let's say, kales or brassicas that go out much earlier in the season. So when growing them in the greenhouse, you want to make sure they have enough room to do their best. So let's get to it. It's actually really easy to repot seedlings. I'm going to be repotting them into these 2-inch plastic pots. I did try using some compostable pots last year, and I personally didn't like how they turned out. It takes them a long time to break down, and I actually found that their roots actually didn't break through the actual pot. It kind of kept them really contained. So I'm really excited to use plastic pots this year because you'll be able to just drop them straight into the soil free of any constraints, and they'll be able to grow to their fullest potential. So I've gone ahead and prepared my pots ahead of time just to speed things along in the video. I have them filled up 3/4 of the way up with a growing mix of peat moss, bark, sand, and perlite. So it's going to hold a lot of good moisture but also drain really well. I also have them labeled with the specific date that I repotted them and the name of the actual plant. Like I said, repotting seedlings is actually quite easy. You want to be very gentle and very delicate with them because they are fragile at this stage. I'm going to actually just be using a pair of scissors to scoop them out of the little cell and plop them into the new pot. So like I said before, repotting seedlings is actually really simple. You just want to make sure you're being very delicate and gentle because they are quite fragile at this stage. Also, at this point, I'm going to be a little more selective of the seedlings that I bring over to grow bigger, because at this point you can see which seedlings are growing, much healthier and much stronger than some of the other seedlings. Like some of them are much smaller and lanky, some of them are actually much bigger and more, they just look stronger, so I'm going to repot those. So I'm going to start with some these Black Beauty tomatoes because some of them are growing really nice and tall. Again, I'm going to be using just a pair of scissors to scoop them out of the cell tray and plopping them over into the new pot. This one looks really nice compared to, this one up here. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out it and pull it out. And tangle some of them. Repotting is also really beneficial for them because when they all grow in this cell tray like this, they get tangled with one another, and it's really nice for them to have good airflow so they don't get moisture buildup on the leaves and they end up getting mold or even some funguses. So the more space they have to grow, the better. Look at this one. Just gonna trace it out and scoop it out. Just plop it into the new pot. Looks great. And I have some soil on the side. I'm just gonna bury it in. Might get a little messy, but you know, that's garden work for you. Nice. Make sure it's nice and packed in there. Awesome, that looks great. Moving on to the next one. Now, sometimes you might get two seeds, you know, accidentally mixed up in a single cell, but if one of them is growing nice, it's actually not too hard to divide them. Let me show you with this one. I'm gonna scoop it out. Now, they are pretty gentle at this stage, but as you can see, there are two little seedlings in this one individual pocket of soil. So I'm just gonna gently pull them apart. You'll feel a little bit of tug, but if you do it really gently, it shouldn't shock the seedling too much. Great. And these are actually both good to be planted, so you just plop them in. And it's that easy to divide some seedlings. I'm just gonna fill it up with some soil. Pretty painless. You might notice after separating some seedlings that they might wilt over, they might experience a little bit of shock, but after a day or two, you know, getting settled into their new pot, they should perk right up. Just pop her in. There you go. Really, really simple. Now, I should also mention, when deciding on a new pot size, I'd say a pretty good rule of thumb is to go about 2 to 3 times bigger than the initial cell that it was growing in. So I think these pots are a really nice size compared to the little cell that they were growing in before. They're gonna be growing in the greenhouse for another month, maybe month and a half. So I think this is plenty of room for them to grow to that size I want them to before actually getting them in the garden. All right, let's plant a few more. Got some Castelludos over here. Let's see, we got another double pairing here. Cool. So here, I actually want this seedling much more than I want this one. So I'm gonna divide this. And I might not actually repot this one just because it's so small. There are much bigger ones. And I do have another tray of tomatoes, so I'm definitely gonna be much more selective here. Just a nice gentle tug apart. Nice, very painless. And plop it in. Just put this one back in the cell tray. Just a Castelludo. Here's another one that can be divided pretty easily. See how this one's much bigger than this one? It's a much stronger seedling. So we're gonna pot her up instead. Nice, make sure you're very gentle. You'll feel some tug and resistance, but if you pull gently, it should come off pretty easily. There you go. Nice. Pop that in, dip her in. Nice. Awesome. They should be much happier in these new, bigger pots. Now I'm gonna repot some pepper plants. Now, a really nice sign that it's time to repot some of the pepper plants. Again, they'll be much larger than the actual cell they're in, but you're actually gonna start seeing some of their true leaves. When seedlings first sprout, they put out these initial new leaves, but then their second growth, or maybe even their third growth, is when they're going to start showing those true leaves, and it's essentially going to look like the leaves that they have when, you know, the mature plants are growing. Let's see. here we have a Buena Mulata. This one looks really nice. So use the scissor to scoop out the edge and plop it right out. Awesome. Oh my gosh, they're gonna be so happy. I can't wait to see how much they grow in these new pots. Oh, see, now here's one that we can divide as well. Very similar to the tomato seedlings. You just want to be very gentle with it. Let's see there. Feel it out, feel it out. Oh, nice, they weren't actually too entangled. So I'm gonna go ahead and plant this one. I'm actually gonna put this one back because I see a better one. Oh, that one was so smooth. We love to see it. We bury it in. Now I'm gonna do some of these Etudia peppers here. Also looking nice and big. Just plop it right in. Super easy. I am so excited to finally get in the garden. We've been doing so many preparations. I can't wait to show you guys what we have in store this season. All right, we have room for one more. Who's gonna take it? I'll say you. Fantastic, these look really great. As you can see, I have a lot more seedlings to tend to, so I'm actually gonna wrap it up here. The last thing you wanna do after repotting your seedlings is water them. So we're gonna give them a nice, gentle watering. Get them really nice and settled into their new pot. And we should really start seeing a spike in growth in like the next 2 days, really. 2 to 3 days. Again, I'm really looking forward to using the plastic pots as well, because if you take good care of them, you could just keep reusing them rather than having to buy a whole bunch of new pots every single year. And they allow the water to drain out really nicely. I also found that with the compostable pots, they held water for a really long time, like the actual pot did, because it's made out of like really absorbing like peat or plant material. So it was actually kind of tricky figuring out how to water them appropriately because they would just kind of stay wet for a really long time. So plastic pots are just much easier in my experiences with them so far. And again, you just take them out of the pot and plop it straight into the soil and they're free to grow as much as they want. I feel like putting them in with that compostable pot, they're kind of constrained. And it can be really hard to break through that pot. So it's nice to give them that freedom in bare soil. Awesome. Oh my gosh, these look really great. I'm so excited to see how they do now. Now, some of them ended up drooping into the soil. I'm gonna pick them up. Don't want them sitting in soil because they'll get dirty and they could actually get some fungal or they could get some fungus on their leaves if they stay in the soil for too long, or some diseases as well. I feel like tomato plants especially are more susceptible to that, so keep them high and dry. Well, I really hope this gave you some insight on repotting seedlings and when to repot them. Again, some signs you want to look out for are your seedlings are drying way too fast, their roots are starting to grow out the bottom of the actual cell or pot that they're in, and 3, they're 2 to 3 times bigger than the cell or the pot that they're in. If you pay attention to your seedlings and you notice any of those signs, it's probably a good time to repot them. And it's only gonna be of great benefit to them. They're gonna have a lot more room to grow and expand, and you'll have much healthier plants ready to go in the garden. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any more questions or tips on seedlings, please leave them in the comments below and let me know what you guys are growing in the garden this year. I love, love, love hearing what you guys are doing as well, because It inspires me and gives me ideas on what to do for the next growing season. If you guys would like to support our channel, please subscribe and share to keep spreading the love for gardening and homesteading. And I'll also be leaving a link in the description below where you can buy handmade soaps and candles made by yours truly. And all the proceeds go back to the ranch and help support all of the work that we're doing here. I'm so grateful for all of your support, and I really appreciate all of your help. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Until next time, I am Brian here at Red Leaf Ranch. Take care, everyone.